Hi, I'm Bob, author of Become a Photoshop Expert in a Day by Mastering Layers. There's an interesting new option for the type tool called Dynamic Text. As of now, in mid-May 2025, it's only in the beta version, so you might not have it available yet, but by the time you watch this video, maybe you will have it. Here's the idea. Normally, you create a text box and apply formatting. But later, when you resize the box or change the text size, the formatting goes out of whack, and you have to adjust it, and you might have to keep adjusting it over and over. But as the name suggests, dynamic text dynamically adjusts. I'll show you. I'm going to start by drawing a text box on this image. I'll do just like that. And I'm going to paste in some text that I already have in the clipboard. This is one of my favorite poems from Alice in the Looking Glass. And let's go and resize this text box. So something like that. I'm going to give it white fill to make it easier to see. So I'll just kind of do like this. And now let me go and apply some formatting. So first thing I'll do is maybe I'll select it again. I'll make it a little bigger. Let's say I'll make that 130 points. And maybe let's go and put some color, a different color on that line, maybe change the size. So I'll take that, just that text, and maybe I'll make it yellow, and maybe I'll make it bold while we're at it. So right now it's semi-bold. I'll make it regular old bold. Okay, so that's great. Now, what happens if I go and modify this text box? So notice what happens. If I make it a little smaller, well, that yellow text is no longer one line. Or if I make it really wide, something like that, it ends up split among two lines. And if I take that text and I change the size, I'll bump it up a little bit like that. Again, the whole thing goes a little nuts. So I have to keep changing it, changing the size, changing the width of the box, figuring out where it all is. So that's what I'm saying is you have to keep fighting with it. So what I'm going to do is let me just delete this. I'm going to drag that text layer into the trash, and I'm going to create a brand new text layer. And I'm going to paste the same text. Let's select it. And again, I'm going to make it white so we can read it better. Okay, here's where it gets really cool. What I'm going to do is, whether it's on this floating palette or if it's on the regular bar up on top, you notice that as long as I have the type tool selected, there's this little option there with the lightning bolt. Now, if I roll the mouse pointer over it, you can see maybe the little pop-up help showing toggle dynamic text. And it's the same thing here. So I'm going to click it, and look at that. It gives us this kind of interesting look. And now let me go and grab this line of text. And I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to go and make that bright yellow. So I've got that. Now I'm going to go and resize this text box, and look at that. It remains together, even if I make it really narrow. So if it's really narrow or really wide, it goes and it maintains it. What if I change the font size of this entire block? So I'm going to select all, and let's make it, say, 150. And notice it's not actually doing it because this is dynamic text. I can't treat this the same way that I treat regular text. But what I'm going to do is, in the Properties panel, let me scroll down a little bit, and you see where we have type options. And I scroll down here, you see dynamic text, and there's this little icon there. Now, if I click that, it's the same thing as kind of clicking that and turning it off. So I'm going to turn it back on again, and it retains the formatting. And we've got a couple of options here. This one will let me change the space between the words, and this will let me change the space between the lines. So I can't really change the point size of the text because of the dynamicness of it. It's really just that spacing that I can change. But I can change the font. So let me go and select that yellow text. Now I'm going to choose another font, and again, this is beta, so this is not going to work with every font, and I think that might be one of the things that they're working on. So I'll choose maybe the bold font bold. So you can see that's different. And let me resize the text box. And again, same thing. So it's a different font. Everything else is Railway, but that yellow text is the bold font bold, and the whole thing works. Some of the other fonts are not going to work, and the whole thing is going to be a little out of whack. And actually, I'll show you. So let's say if I take that and maybe I make this Dazzle Unicase, well, you can see it's not quite behaving. Well, that's what happens when you're dealing with beta software. Now, this can also work, dynamic text can work with regular object text, but not really that great. And with object text, you don't have the resizing that you do with paragraph text. So I'm not even going to bother with it right now. And at any time, you could go and disable it and turn it back to regular text, and then re-enable it if you want, and it goes back to dynamic text. I like that the dynamic text option lets you spend more time designing your artwork, so you spend less time fighting with the tools. So check out my full course, Become a Photoshop Expert in a Day by Mastering Layers, and I'll see you in the next video.